So this is DCS. It's a beautiful flight sim that offers what is probably the most realistic sim on the market today. It's awesome, but the bar to entry can be somewhat high, not in the least because it's a lot to take in. Every single button and function is modeled accurately in this plane, which means you need to learn how to do all of those things. And that's pretty hard, but I don't think it's nearly the beast that a lot of people think it is. And to prove that to you, I taught my girlfriend, someone who has never touched a flight sim in her life, how to do one of the hardest things you can attempt in aviation: a proper landing. And by proper, I don't just mean flying to the runway and putting the plane on top of it. There's a certain way that pilots set up their plane to land in real life. And once it's set up, it kind of changes things. For one, the way you control the plane is actually very different when you're coming into land. The controls you're probably used to are pull back on the stick for nose up, push forward for nose down, and move the stick left and right to roll. And obviously throttle up for throttle up and throttle down for, you guessed it, throttle down. But when you're landing, you don't use the stick for up and down at all. In fact, the only reason you'll touch the stick is to roll left or right. To point the nose up or down, you use the throttle. Throttle up for nose up, and throttle down for nose down. Now I know that sounds weird, but let me show you why, and it will make a little more sense. For simplicity's sake, I'll be explaining all of this from the perspective of an F-18 pilot, but the procedure is very similar for other jets. So this is the plane flying normally. You can see the nose is more or less in line with where the plane is heading, but we want to change that so the nose is pointing up. To do that, when below 300 knots, we're gonna drop the gear and full flaps and put the throttle to idle. Now, our airspeed is gonna start to drop, and in the cockpit, a bracket will show up on the HUD. Also in the HUD, you'll notice the velocity vector, showing where our plane is actually going. To set up properly, we wanna keep trimming up as we slow down to keep our velocity vector on the horizon. And eventually, the velocity vector will be lined up with that bracket. Once that's been achieved, you are now what's called on speed, and now control the plane the way I explained earlier. You can see that if I increase the throttle, the nose moves up, and decreasing moves it down. We can also turn by just rolling the plane slightly to the right or left. During all of this, I have not touched the Y-axis on my stick. It's all in the throttle. Now for today, I'm going to be teaching my lovely partner Clairissa how to do a straight-in approach. Usually, there would be more steps than this, but for her first attempts, I want to make it as simple as possible so we can start getting the muscle memory down. So, for this type of approach, this is what we'll be doing. First, get on-speed AOA. Now here I'll also mention what we're going to be looking at on the HUD. But first, one we actually aren't going to be using on the HUD, and that is our airspeed. Once you've achieved on-speed AOA, this becomes irrelevant, and you can essentially pretend it doesn't exist. Now for the ones we will be looking at, for one, obviously, the velocity vector to show us where we're headed. Altitude is also fairly important, but more important than that is the number above the altitude. This number is showing how many feet per minute we are gaining or losing. In other words, our descent rate. In the Hornet, the ideal descent rate for landing is somewhere around minus 700 feet per minute, and no more than about 900, unless you want a compressed spine and an obligation to buy a round for all the maintenance guys. Now when you're on speed, minus 700 feet per minute will roughly be when the velocity vector is about 2.5 degrees down on our pitch ladder. So in the ideal landing, we fly level until the start of the runway is about 2.5 degrees down. Then point our velocity vector at it. In this clip, you'll notice that I'm pointing at the tip of the runway and I'm going down at about 750 feet per minute, which is perfect. In contrast, you'll see that in this clip, we're low. There are two reasons that we know that. For one, the place that we're aiming to touch down on the runway, which is where our velocity vector is only down about 1, maybe 1.5 degrees. But even more obvious than that, we're only going down at about 420 feet per minute. To correct this, we would point our velocity vector above the runway and then point back down when it's in the right spot. And obviously, if we're too high, it's the same thing, but you flip it all around. Once you're at the place you like, it's simply a matter of keeping the velocity vector pointed at the spot you want to touch down on the runway. This will require very small movements in the throttle to maintain, but no vertical vertical stick movements. Now, this is a Navy plane, so as long as we're going at the correct descent rate, we don't need to flare before touching down. Simply wait till the wheels hit the ground and then extend the air brake and use slight pressure on the toe brakes to slow down. And that's it. You've made a landing. Now I know that may seem like a lot, and it is, but all of this quickly becomes muscle memory, and you'll see that in Clarissa's attempts. Now, I will admit, this is not actually the first time she's tried my sim setup, but all she's really tried thus far is just basic maneuvering. You know, how to roll, pitch, all of that. Overall though, she probably has a maximum of about an hour in the sim, spread over several months. And she's never tried flying while in the landing configuration, so this is all gonna be new to her. Well, I say that, the truth is, she actually has, but our dearly beloved cat jumped on my computer while we were recording and pressed the power button during her first attempt, which corrupted the video that I was recording. So really what you're about to see is after about a couple minutes of trying it out. Thank you, Lulu, our dearly beloved creature. In this first clip, we're not trying to land. All I want is her to get accustomed to controlling the plane while on speed. In her first attempt, I had her try to maintain level flight, and she did really good with it. So now, for her second attempt, I want to get her used to moving the velocity vector up and down. So what I want here is her to decrease the throttle and catch it on the -5 degree bracket, and then increase the throttle to catch it on the horizon. So let's see how she does with that, and I'll be making adjustments as she starts to get the hang of it. Of course, the first thing she's gonna have to do is get the gear out, flaps out, and on speed. So that's what she's doing here. And I'm including all of this here because I think if any of you out there are struggling with learning how to land, doing this exercise might help you out. Do the gear and flaps. Okay, good job. And now keep it at the horizon with little stick inputs, but we want it to be that if you're not touching the stick, it's just sitting in the bracket. So keep trimming up. Keep it there for a sec. I think you've got it here. Okay, so now that she has the velocity vector in the brackets, she's gonna switch from controlling pitch with the stick to controlling it with the throttle. And now you bring it back. Nice. So now that she's kind of settled out, we're gonna start working on that exercise that I mentioned earlier. Well, yeah, you were close enough. I was gonna let it slide. Okay. Now you can see right there she was trying to stop on the horizon line but went past it. But that's okay. The point of this exercise is learning when you need to kick the throttle to catch it in a certain spot. So the more she does this, the better she's gonna get at predicting when she needs to move the throttle and how much. It's a little easier, like what you're doing now, to just kind of move it in little chunks. Now you can see right here she does a really good job with this catch on the 5 degree line, only going barely past it before recovering and going back up. In hindsight, the exercise probably should have been to get it down to the 5 degree line and hold it there for a few seconds, and then do the same with the horizon line, but this is okay. She's still learning that throttle control that she needs. It probably just would have been helpful to learn how to settle it out nicely. Nice. So after just a little bit of practice, she is starting to get this fairly consistently. She may not be stopping perfectly on the lines, but she's close enough that it's not really going to be much of an issue. We're not looking for perfection, we're just looking for good enough so that she can attempt a landing.
Oh,
what?
She reached her paw to my hand.
Oh. Hello. Come here, baby. Girl. Now she's doing really awesome here, and I can tell she's starting to get the hang of it. So I'm gonna try to set her up in a way that would resemble something kind of like a real landing. Now see if you can maneuver point at the tip of that island there.
I'm confused.
Or not island, but the tip of the coastline right here. You see it?
Okay.
This is kind of building on the exercise we were just doing, where she's also going to have to use the stick to go left and right. This is going to start building that important muscle memory. And you'll see when she's trying to turn onto this thing, she's wiggling back and forth a little bit. That's just because she's rolling out of her turn a little too late, but that's okay. It's the exact same thing with learning how to go up and down. It's just muscle memory. You have to know when to roll and when to level back out. And you can see after just a couple minutes of trying this, she's got it down.
That's not perfect.
It's pretty good. What do you mean it's not perfect?
I'm not right on the tip. You know?
Well, you can go to the side a little more if you want. Try it. Get used to leveling the plane out. So she's doing really well with this, and I tell her to just fly it all the way into the dirt there. She comes down a little hard in the dirt, but that's fine. We're not looking for perfection here, obviously. This was just a good way to get practice, but now I think she's ready for the real thing. The first couple of tries, she had trouble getting the plane on speed, so we did restart it a couple times. But then she had this flight, which was really great. Now you can do the gear and flaps. Good job. Trim it up a little more. This is already looking way better than the first couple attempts. She's keeping the velocity vector on the horizon and letting the bracket just fall down to it. That is exactly what you want to be doing, and she's done a great job here. Beautiful. Okay, you need to be touching the stick though, because you're drifting to the right now.
Oh,
You see
right,
your
right,
runway?
right. Yeah. I remember.
Now, some of you may have noticed she is a little bit low right now, but that's okay. I'm just gonna let that happen for a minute while she really figures out how to control and line up with the runway. I gave us a really long approach, so she has a lot of time to fix that later anyway. Meatball right on the tip of that runway. You're coming in just a little bit shallow. We want this to be down there a little bit, so point above the runway for a second.
Okay.
So, like you hear me telling her, she's a little bit low right now, so she needs to put the velocity vector above the runway. And once the runway is down at about 2.5 degrees, she's gonna point her nose back down at it.
Maybe I was, but that wasn't what I was trying to do.
You do good.
It's beeping.
Yep. Keep going up. You want to settle that ball. This will still work, but we are very, very low right now. By the way, I'm focused on helping her land right now, so I didn't mention it, but that beeping, if you were wondering, is just saying that we're getting low in altitude,
What'd you
which
say?
is fine.
Nothing.
That's kind of the point of landing. Okay, so right now, in the ideal situation, we should have the velocity vector pointing right at the spot we want to touch down on the runway. Nice. Settle it out. You're perfect if you can just stick right here. Up a little bit. Now, if you look here up at the descent rate, she's going down at about 600 feet per minute. So a little low, but still, this is going to be perfectly fine. You're crushing it. You might have to give it a little bit of rudder on the ground, but that's okay. Ooh. Nicely done. Did you bring out the air brake?
I think.
Ooh, look out. control the turning with the brakes more than the rudder.
I am.
Oh, there's a guy from earlier.
Hey, friend.
Okay, so this was the very first time that she tried an actual landing attempt, and it went beautifully. The wheels touched down at a good descent rate, and she was able to keep it on the runway, which is great. For this attempt, there were only really 2 things that I noticed that we should try to improve. The first one being that when we touched down, it did get a little bit squirrely. But she did get it under control and managed to miss the pile of junk that was on the runway. Another thing that we could work on is making the approach a little bit smoother. If you compare one of my landings to Clarissa's, you can see that my velocity vector isn't really moving up or down any, while Clarissa's is. And that's kind of to be expected when she's still getting the muscle memory down, but obviously something we can try to improve. Now, after this landing, she gave it a few more tries, and rather than boring you by going through all of it in detail again, I'm just going to show you the landings and quickly mention what went well and what we could improve. In her second landing attempt, things went pretty well right up until the end. She lets it get a little high, and when trying to correct it, drops the nose way too much. She ends up slamming into the runway, and this actually did break her gear. Overall, though, this was still a really good attempt, and I know for damn sure it looks better than my second ever landing did. Now, her third attempt really was spectacular. She gets a little bit off to the left side, but corrects it at the last minute, no problem. And she also puts it down right at 650 feet per minute, which is beautiful. Not to mention, with how far she was to the left a second ago, it's really awesome that she was able to correct it and stay pretty damn close to the center line. This was her best landing yet, and it was awesome. Now, I had been giving her tips up to this point, but on these final 2 attempts that I'm about to show you, she did it all on her own. I just sat silently and watched. In this one, she does come in a little bit shallow and then drops the throttle a little too early, so comes down just slightly hard, but still a pretty good attempt here. It's worth mentioning as well, this was a full like 24 hours later, so she was trying all of this having not been told anything in a day, which is why she forgot how to fully put up the air brake. And kind of the same thing happens in her final attempt here. The nose just comes down a little early, and we slam down a little bit hard. But still not bad at all, especially because right up until the end there, she was doing a great job keeping the velocity vector just stuck in one spot. It was barely moving up and down anymore, so she had definitely improved on that aspect of things. And honestly, once you really get that down, the smooth landings will just kind of come automatically. So that's really the most important part. Overall, she really crushed it with all of this, and I can't believe it. So big round of applause for Clairissa. I'd like to thank her for agreeing to do this video with me. And hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, we could maybe do more of this in the future. Maybe teaching her how to land on a carrier, or even do like an aerial refueling or something. Both of which are even harder than what we tried to do here, but I think with how fast she got this, we could have her doing that in no time. In total, she was only flying for about an hour and 30 minutes. That's all the time it took for me to get this footage. And if she can do that with next to no experience at all, I'm sure you can as well. So I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on what you guys want to see next.